Welcome to the Reality Revolution. I'm your host, Brian Scott. Recently, I've had some episodes where I've really focused on helping you to achieve your vision. We've talked about stepping into the gap between where you are now and where you want to be. We've talked about discovering your power to assert yourself and creating a vision for your reality. Today's episode is focused on committing to the vision for the reality you want to create. As you continue this process of change that you have been undergoing since you encountered this podcast, you will start to become aware of the phenomenon of resistance. This is natural. You realize how your social self, the attributes of your old self that are important to interpersonal relationships, and how you are influenced by the reactions of others, is a major factor in your unconscious resistance to making the necessary changes to create the outcomes that you want. The social concept, how we think others see us, with certain characteristics, both good and bad, fears and self-doubts, abilities and skills, is something we tend to hold on to. It keeps us locked in to what we think others want and sets up a cycle of approval-seeking behaviors. I am telling you about this because this is what I went through, and it held me back for a very long time from seeing my goals manifested. What I found was that this process keeps alive the anxieties, the fears, the self-doubts, the I can't, and all the things that cause us to stop. The past, including all your beliefs about how the world is and how you believe you are, and the expectations of others, keeps you from making the changes and taking on the new challenge of living your life directed toward your vision. Be sure to check out my episode on Create Your Vision. Now that you have your vision, the next step is committing to that vision. The past is not reality. It does not have to equal the future or some predestined outcome. In this episode, we're going to review beliefs from the perspective of the process of socialization. We're going to look at how the past and our social self creates resistance, the change and the vision, and how the key to change, committing to the vision and not conforming to the past or what we think others expect. Your beliefs are powerful in the sense that they have become an integral part of you, or stated more accurately, who you believe you are. They want you to conform to this old way of being and resist change. These principles are the result of rules you created or something you unconsciously picked up and accepted as true. Today, these beliefs are running your life without you being aware of them. Let's take the example of a woman who wanted to have a relationship but had several beliefs that hurt her ability to meet men and ultimately made her reluctant to get close to anyone. On the first date, she would try to detect whether the man had serious intentions. She believed that if the vibes were not right with the man she had just met, she should back off and withdraw. This pattern prevented her from actually getting to know the person. She would make a snap judgment. He's not going to work out, before getting to really know him. This assessment was based on her past, which she decided was a true and accurate test. It was based on a feeling she had that she turned into a rule. If the man passed the vibe test, she would agree to a second date. This is where her other life principles came up. She wondered, can I trust him? The negative question caused her to feel skeptical and scared. This made her feel vulnerable, which caused another belief to come up. If she felt vulnerable, she tied the vulnerability to discomfort that led to suspicion. Since I feel vulnerable, I can't trust this man. She rejected all sorts of men. And yet she had a strong desire to settle down and eventually marry. Her assessment pattern was limiting, built on a series of underlying beliefs rooted in her past. A major one was, every time I get close to someone, I become fearful. So in effect, This belief caused her to become guarded and hold back, which prevented her from developing a relationship. This belief kept her from really seeing the person for who he was. She was functioning out of a life principle, which was a rule she established out of a belief she had formed as a child. And she used this belief to act as a filtering device, an assessment tool. The filtering device was faulty because it was based on negative childhood experiences, and it began with an assumption that the relationship would not work out. Because she was committed to the vision, she realized that her beliefs were causing unrealistic expectations. She said, "I've got to get past these feelings of being fearful. I'm not enjoying the process of meeting people." She was able to trace the fear back to her inability to trust her father because he threatened to leave the family. In addition, when she dug a little deeper, she realized that she had formed beliefs based on society's expected norms, and specifically what she saw on TV. There was a TV show, and one of its actors said, "In the first moment of meeting, there needs to be chemistry. From this, I formed a rule that became my vibe test," she explained. Many people form their beliefs not only from parental figures, but also from TV shows and the news. A childhood experience can form a belief that affects the decisions someone makes over the course of 20, 30, or 40 years. Something so obscure as a TV show. When she realized where her rules came from, she replaced her vibe test with a new filter. Is he nice? Does he have a good job? Does he communicate? She also formed new rules for herself. I will be open and listen without judgment. Do I find myself enjoying the moment, or am I too busy trying to determine the future? The next example of how beliefs are formed is of an executive who grew up feeling inadequate because his parents, no matter how well he performed in school, criticized him. This caused him to feel inadequate and defensive. The criticism turned into, "You're not good enough." As an adult, he formed the belief, "I'm not good enough, and I need to be ready in case they attack me." To protect himself, he acted aloof and pretended he didn't care what others thought. He formed a cynical attitude to protect the self. He was hypervigilant to any possible slights, often seeing things as a personal attack. These self-protective measures made him standoffish and defensive, which caused him to focus on himself even more, fearful of what others might say or do. He would start from the position, is this person going to be critical of me? And am I about to be criticized and rejected? When you start from a negative position like this, you are giving yourself 2 strikes before you even step up to the plate. This is expecting the worst and trying to prepare for it. The problem with expecting the worst and preparing for it is that you see everything as a potential attack, even if it's not. His aloofness and his defensiveness made him a loner at work. His co-workers avoided him, worked around him, and his value to the organization diminished rapidly. For the executive, the question is, what does he have to do to drop his defensiveness? He has to decide what he wants. He has to build relationships and commit to communicating. He has to assess his competencies and determine the results he can deliver in terms of what his organization needs from him. He can shift his defensive perspective to a perspective in which he sees his co-workers being helpful and interested. He can bolster his new perspective by considering the fact that his co-workers may have some ideas that could improve his work and create a more collaborative work environment. Instead of anticipating the hostile reaction, look for constructive feedback. He could also consider that by listening, he may be helping others overcome their own fears of rejection. Fortunately, the executive realized how he was sabotaging himself. He committed to making changes in himself. He stopped focusing on himself. He stopped defending himself. He shifted his filter from, is this criticism, and am I about to be rejected, to, let me listen and not judge. He learned that not everything people said was about him. He eventually replaced the old filter of protecting himself against things that happened in the past and began living through a new, more positive perspective. How can I be of service to others? The past does not have to define you. The executive no longer saw each interaction as being a potential opportunity for getting beat up. When he focused on his commitment to the outcome, to the vision, he stopped seeing the world from a defensive posture. He was able to tune in to the needs of those around him by not worrying about himself and his fears, he was able to see the world for what it was, a much more interesting place. This holds true for all of us. When we stop fearing rejection and stop worrying about failure, we no longer have to live from a defensive posture, and everything becomes more interesting and gratifying. Instead of protecting yourself, your ego, and your opinions, shift your focus on what you want, your goals. When you focus on what you want, you feel good about who you are and who you are becoming. As a result, the opinions of others become far less significant. The critical thing for all of us is to see how much we are holding on to the past in a self-protective way. Determine how much you're holding on to the past and how it is interfering with you being engaged in the process of becoming who you wish to be and achieving what you want. It is critical to see that this applies to any objective you have for yourself, including taking on a career challenge, developing athletic skills, losing weight, going to college, dating, or artistic and creative endeavors. While it seems normal and comfortable to be protective of who you are by not allowing anything to harm you, it can be very destructive. Holding on to a defensive posture makes you rigid. It does not enable you to enjoy or grow by experiencing the situation. It's easy to slip into the usual way of seeing the world and to approach situations in the same way we have in the past. This is because it feels more comfortable. We think this is like previous situations, therefore I will function in the same way I always have. Approaching reality from the perspective of our past, however, doesn't allow us to see the situation for what it is or people for who they are. It doesn't allow you to test your skills and develop new capabilities. In fact, the automatic thought process of bringing in the past to analyze the current situation doesn't allow you to be fully present and free of limiting notions. At this point, you know many of the problems we face are due to our interpretation. When we see situations from the perspective of our past, we relate the present to the past. The past quickly creates our reality, eventually replicating itself in our future in a self-fulfilling prophecy. If our interpretation is rooted in the past and is inaccurate, our analysis of the present is faulty. According to Santayana's philosophy, those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it. Stop doing what isn't working. Repeating what didn't work is never smart. The importance of being fully present is seeing reality for what it is. When we can see reality without bringing up the filters and lenses of the past, without trying to see how the current situation matches past experiences, real or imagined, and realize we do not have to act on the basis of those past experiences, we can be more alive and make better decisions by being fully present. The people in the previous examples base their current reality on their childhood experiences, but it could have been any bad experience. Thinking this situation is similar to that bad experience I had in the past can create all sorts of problems for you. When you interpret a situation by comparing it to that bad experience, the underlying thought is, this is not going to work. Therefore, you expect failure, and the outcome will match your expectation. Then you can say, see, I told you so, bolstering your belief and creating a feeling of vindication. I was right. This is what occurred with another executive. She formed a belief and created a situation to prove herself right. She was considering promoting an employee for a management position. However, she was hesitant. A former manager of his from another company told her that he had poor administrative skills, although it had been over 10 years since they worked together. She was big on paperwork and immediately formed the belief that this person would not work out because of his poor administrative skills. However, at the urging of her manager, who said, give him a chance, she relented and offered him the position. Almost immediately, she began complaining about his failure to fill out paperwork properly. Even though paperwork was not the main function of the job, you could literally hear her defending her opinion using the same argument the manager from the other company made. These are the same issues that I heard from his previous manager. He was right. I should have listened to what he said. She was looking for issues to fulfill her belief that this person wouldn't perform and prove she was right. When asked what the issues were exactly, she had a difficulty explaining them. She said, he isn't filling out the forms correctly and he doesn't get them done on time. She told HR that he wasn't working out. To justify her belief, she took one incident and made it pervasive. It wasn't because he wasn't performing, it was because she wanted to be right. Instead of looking at the results he was achieving, she focused on the paperwork issue and criticized him incessantly. This caused him to quit. Now, she has a large hole in her organization, and he is flourishing in his new job with the competition who hired him to do what he was good at doing. So you have to drop the prescribed beliefs of your past in order for you to properly commit to your vision. Mark Twain humorously said this about the past: "History doesn't repeat itself, but it does rhyme." How often do you see something and twist the story to fit what you believe to be true? What comes up in many situations is your belief forms a judgmental interpretation that generates the biased behavior. When you become judgmental and interpret everything in terms of yourself, you are putting yourself first. When you begin seeing everything from the perspective of how is this going to affect me, your thinking can become guarded, defensive, even jaded. When you see things only from the stand of previous beliefs, you're not going to open to possibilities. It is very much like a self-fulfilling prophecy. I failed at this before. Why should this be any different? I will fail at this as well. This is the problem with keeping the past alive and operating both consciously and subconsciously from old beliefs. You have to identify your beliefs and principles that are not working and are blocking you from seeing reality for what it is and keeping you from being who you are and becoming more of who you can be. You really cannot enjoy or experience life situations if you are constantly living from the perspective of the past. You cannot enjoy the situation when all sorts of fears arise and cause you to feel vulnerable. Many of our problems stem from judgment. Judging things and people often feels so normal and natural for us. We put things and people in categories that are labeled so we can make sense of them. However, the danger is that it can be very limiting. Labels seem to be okay when we use them to describe what things are. Nouns: pants, shoes, bus, car, plane. It's when we assign adjectives to things that we begin to set limits. That's beautiful. She's beautiful. She's overweight. She's good. She's mean. I am not beautiful. I'm not smart. That's going to be hard to do. I'm not good at this. Those shoes are nice looking, but they aren't appropriate for work. She is beautiful. She will never be interested in me. If you can suspend judgment and the evaluation of things and people, you begin to see how your evaluation is based on what you learned in the past, which may be and usually is faulty. You also learn, when you suspend judgment, how much energy and space in your head you have available for living your life. Of course, the tendency is to latch on to old feelings and beliefs. They offer a sense of familiarity and comfort. Many of your old patterns are running subconsciously and give you a sense of comfort that you are okay. You conclude that this is the way of the world, and therefore there really aren't any alternatives to seeing the world or being in it in a better way. The critical task in terms of beginning to live your life in a more future-oriented way is recognizing you have this fixed take on the world which colors and distorts everything and keeps repeating itself. But what blocks you are the thoughts. It's too late to change. I'm past that now. Why should I bother? Why should I change? My vision is for someone else. There's a great resistance to change because it can be scary. When people don't know what's on the other side of the change, they'll choose the sure thing, even when the sure thing isn't so great, just to have an answer or a conclusion. Change is about the unknown, whereas much of your life had to do with seeking stability and eliminating the unknowns. There can be a lot of anxiety not knowing the outcome, and this is all part of the resistance to letting go of the past. The key point is to function in terms of your creative vision. Can you go beyond what you know? Can you go beyond your self-protectiveness? Can you go beyond your social persona in terms of being able to create your life? and living in terms of your new vision. In other words, how badly do you want to change? Are you willing to give up the past and begin living your vision now? Can you shift your perspective from anxiety of what may be around the corner to excitement? Try this exercise. To move forward, identify your hang-ups. What are your fears? What are you worried about? Define the issues or challenges that you're facing. List them and describe them, whatever the issues for you are, and there will be more than one. I'd be shocked if there was only one or zero. Start with one you can tackle with, or one that is always holding you back, and break it down into its simplest components. Then determine what is possible to change and make the adjustments. Often you find that you've been functioning out of habit and on automatic pilot for so long that you ask, why didn't I start this sooner? Here are some questions that will help you identify any issues or hang-ups. To what extent do you function in the world in terms of trying to get people to like you? To what extent are you helpful? Are you too helpful? How much do you keep doing things in the same way because you're afraid that people will resent it if you act differently or feel hurt if you don't do what they expect? To what extent are you dependent? To what extent are you perfectionistic? To what extent are you trapped by a notion of yourself such that it keeps you from functioning in terms of your vision? How much are you functioning on automatic pilot out of habit? And how much are you trapped by that? Here is an example. Judy has always tried to be helpful. She offers help where she shouldn't, things that aren't hers to do and doesn't want to do. She's been trying to stop because it's caused her to be angry and resentful. There's also a pushiness to it, and at times feels like she is crossing boundaries. Recently, when she offered to help a friend, and the friend said, "No, thank you. I can do it myself." Instead of recognizing she fell into the trap of her old behavior again and being thankful that the friend did not accept the help, Judy feels hurt. Judy feels her friend rejected her, not just the offer. The issue is Judy's self-worth is tied into the offer to help and believes if others respected her, they would accept offers to help. Here's a belief showing up. Judy expects that if she is helpful, other people will respond positively. For her, it's a way of controlling her world and being accepted. Her helpfulness is really about trying to get people to respond a certain way with the love and respect that she did not receive growing up. So when someone tells her no, she feels rejected, much in the same way she felt when she was a child. She's come to understand logically that it has nothing to do with respecting or liking her, yet she feels compelled to still offer to help in order to get that feeling of being accepted, not necessarily to be of service. So you have to commit to the result in the face of uncertainty, which is the primary point of this episode. You must commit to the outcome, commit to the vision. People resist change and hold on to the past in other ways. They're afraid to commit to the outcome they desire. They're afraid to commit to their vision because they want to keep their options open. Some people are afraid to commit to a result for fear of not achieving it and being judged a failure. Some people resist change and hold on to the past by being unwilling to take responsibility for making their lives work. Of course, there is no certainty that everything will work out, but taking responsibility for our lives is a key element for change. Rather than attributing our difficulties to factors outside of us, we take responsibility by committing to move in the direction of our vision. Another issue is people make excuses and give up too easily. They say there are no good men around, or there aren't any jobs available, or I can't get ahead because I'm tall, short, black, white, or whatever excuse they can dream up. The excuses keep them from tapping into their creative potential and stretching as much as possible to really make a go of their lives. A perfect example of this, let's say Tom. Tom is out of a job and needs to find work, yet it seems like he isn't serious. He pretends to listen to the coaching he gets, but he doesn't follow a plan and take action. He doesn't want to risk failing. If he puts effort in and he does fail, it will prove that he isn't of value. Instead of taking the bull by the horns and get his resume done, search job boards, and get the word out by networking with people he knows in his industry, asking them out for coffee. He procrastinates. He says the timing isn't right. By making an excuse, he is covering up his fear of being rejected and failing, and not being who he is making himself out to be. Tom was laid off from a previous job and takes it personally. He sees the layoff as an issue of his self-worth, which is totally common. And that is what I've felt when I've been laid off. He doesn't want to feel the pain of rejection again. He's afraid that if no one jumps and says, "Here's a job offer," it's simply another form of rejection. He sees this as a reflection of himself. He has even formed a protective excuse. "I'm too old. No one wants to hire someone my age." He's refusing to make the commitment and refusing to act because of the past and the fear of rejection. I am Tom. That's exactly what I did. I was not willing to take that failure and face it. And so to avoid that fear of rejection, I just wouldn't go and get a job. Commitment to the result is the other side of the coin of resistance. In this case, the fear of rejection, people hold on to the past because it's familiar, but they also don't have to risk themselves. They stand in the same place instead of saying, "Okay, what's the objective and what do I have to do to reach the objective?" People like Tom or myself need to give up the self-protection and step into the arena, step into the gap. They need to commit to a result, commit to a vision, and allow the result to govern what they need to do to make the result a reality. The arena is the gap between where they are and where they want to be. It's going to be uncomfortable. There is uncertainty. A lot of times, what I find when I'm coaching people and talking to people, it's just they're unwilling to be uncomfortable. They're unwilling to take that small step that's going to be a little bit uncomfortable, that causes some anxiety. People who are successful don't necessarily know how they're going to accomplish the outcome, but they are willing to commit to do everything they can to make it happen. They let go of the past and burn their bridges. They let go of the familiar and they make the commitment. "I am going to do this come hell or high water," is what they say. This is where the concentration comes in. This is where the effort comes in. This is where the struggle has to be, and it requires being constantly alert to opportunities and focused on doing the next right thing. This is what is required to achieve the result, to commit to the vision, to commit to the outcome. The people who are prone to hesitate use the word "but." They have a thought that causes self-doubt and stops them. You can hear the self-doubt in the "but." The thought goes like this: "Yes, I will commit to the goal, but I did this before and it didn't work. I'll commit to doing these things, but I have other things to do too. I'll try to get these opportunities. I'll try to get these appointments, but the economy's bad." This is a universal problem. It is a common way to how we approach things. We hesitate. We all are afraid of making a commitment. We're all afraid of being in the realm of uncertainty. Tom's experience is something many of us can relate to. If I commit, I might fail, and it will confirm that I'm a failure. We all have the same issue. This is the human condition. This is what it's like to be human. If you have felt this way, then you are human. So the question you have to ask yourself is, what am I hesitating to commit to? What is something you know you should do that you have no control over in terms of the end result? You have to watch out for and be constantly alert to repetitive behaviors and related thoughts that cause you to hesitate. You are a creature of habit, and even when you decide to commit, you have to be alert to thoughts that cause you to behave the same way you behaved in the past. Being convinced that the past will repeat itself is one of the thought patterns you have to eliminate. The moment we commit to moving forwards, to moving towards the outcome, the moment we commit to our vision, the objective, we come face to face with the resistance that is being discussed. The resistance is the concept that we have of ourselves, our beliefs, our life principles, our habits. We expose our fears, worries, and self-doubts that it may not be possible to do the things we said we would do. What does it take to commit to the vision? What's inherent in the realm of commitment that will make it possible for us to go beyond what we know, to go beyond the resistance, to let go of the fear and the superstition? First, it is extremely important to commit, making the outcome a reality by taking certain actions. To do this, we need to develop incremental step-by-step plans, take action, and then measure the results. We also need to monitor our thoughts, create a support structure, develop relationships with like-minded people, and perhaps hire a coach. These are all critical variables in handling commitment, but unfortunately, they can easily be pushed off and out of the way. When the commitment isn't there and the critical variables are pushed aside, we will easily and comfortably slip into past behaviors. So you don't get knocked off course, it is critical to find support, a person or a group of people to work with you in achieving the goal. Perhaps a coach or mentor or sponsor to help guide you stepwise through the process. Try to find people who have already achieved the result you want. For example, if you have your own business and you want to reach a certain amount of sales by the end of the year, look around to see who has done this and go talk to that person. He or she can tell you all sorts of things you're not aware of, including what to avoid. Successful people are usually very helpful to others who are committed to their vision, who are committed to the outcome. Another critical idea to help you stay on track is breaking the goal down into very small steps. I talked about this in my episode on creative vision. The idea of small, achievable steps is easier to swallow than seeing a massive goal and trying to take big leaps toward it. Smaller increments allow you to check in with yourself each step of the way and see the progress you're making. When you look at the end goal, it seems too enormous. It seems insurmountable, too distant. But when you break things down in their logical sequence into steps, each step is a smaller objective on the path to the larger goal. Each step you accomplish makes the next step that much easier, and this makes it more achievable. Next, consider how you're going to deal with the unknown, with breakdowns, with failure, with all the things that occur when you start trying to make something happen. When you start trying to live out of commitment, you are going to face the unknown and uncertainty. You're going to have to deal with the problems. You're going to run into resistance. You are going to have to confront situations you're not used to dealing with. People you counted on won't follow through. When you make a commitment to change, you rarely do so in a vacuum. You may not want to depend on other people, but you're going to need other support. Now that you're more aware of what you want and have made a commitment to achieve it, you're going to have to speak more clearly about what you want from others. You have to tell people what you need and expect. This may be difficult for you. You may not be accustomed to asking for what you want. We all have the impulse to be a little indirect in asking for help, if we ask at all. Nevertheless, it is important to learn how to make requests of people, to ask them to commit to delivering certain things you need. There's a lot of value in being able to say, this is what I want, can you do it? As opposed to doing what you've done before, being indirect because you're afraid you'll be told no, and in a large sense trying to avoid any kind of confrontation. No one wants to be told no, so we try to avoid asking for what we want. This is especially true of people who are fearful or lack confidence. We have an inbuilt danger signal that switches on when we need something, so we beat around the bush to see if the other person might be willing to help and volunteer their assistance. Not asking for what we need is a big problem. When people avoid communicating, it is a way of hiding and not speaking from the heart. Whether we're trying to be helpful or to be thought well of, we're blocking what we are really feeling. This is very scary for many people. The key is to say what you mean. Speak the truth by saying how you really feel. If you are feeling anxious at that moment, just be anxious or say, I'm anxious. But tell the person what you want or need. Don't play mind-reading games. People sometimes feel compelled to explain their fears, self-doubts, and issues to others. People say they want to be honest. They say, I don't want to lie. This leads us to the question about how much should you tell others about the details of your fears. Is telling people everything about yourself, your fears, phobias, likes, and dislikes a good policy? Is this being honest? Or is it more advisable to be circumspect about revealing all the personal details? On one hand, it may seem cathartic to tell everybody what you are feeling and experiencing. On the other hand, it really does not help you or others. It isn't necessary to expose others to everything you are feeling or thinking. When you dump, and that is what you're doing, how you feel on another person, she may seem receptive, but she probably cannot relate, causing her to distrust you. People do not have the same anxiety or fear you have. Not everyone can relate to someone who is looking for a new job, or fears heights, or has a fear they'll never get married. If you begin telling people about your anxieties in the name of being honest, they may feel something is wrong with you. Some people may feel that you are irrational, strange, and even bizarre. One person told a trusted colleague at work that he was on medication because he heard voices. Word got around and he was soon let go from his job, although the medication was working. Sure, this is illegal, but people are let go all the time in the guise of reorganizations and downsizing. One executive did not drink alcohol and was asked by a colleague why he did not drink. I was being honest and thought candor would put the issue to rest. I told the person my father had a problem with drinking and it created issues growing up. The executive said, he went on, but instead of putting the question to rest, it raised more issues. I was no longer invited out for drinks or dinners. People who haven't lived with or dealt with alcoholism, abuse, poverty, or a specific condition or difficulty are not able to relate to the depths of your experience. You don't have to explain your condition or experience. This need to explain in the name of being honest can be another form of seeking approval, trying to fit in or show you're okay. Yes, you may feel you can trust the person, but even your closest friends are not necessarily going to understand some of the things you're going through or have lived through. Other times we want to get something off our chests, to tell someone something we are feeling or see if the other person is experiencing what we are feeling. It is a form of attempting to connect, to relate. Can you believe he said that? It is using something negative, which isn't a healthy way to relate. Some people confide in others in an attempt to gain trust or increase their humanness. My spouse is drinking every night and I have fits of anger. Usually the opposite occurs. You look weak. The other person may not trust you and avoid you. People may label you or put you in a box or treat you a certain way. It isn't fair. I know. If you feel compelled at work to tell the truth about your issues, ask yourself, what is my motive? What am I attempting to gain? If you feel an impulsive urge to reveal something in that moment, hold on to the urge and wait. You may be trying to comfort yourself. You will get over the urgent feeling to express your anxiety with passage of time. If you're going to tell someone how you feel, you need to be very selective whom you tell. Realize there are counselors for this and support groups such as AA or Al-Anon. The bottom line is, no matter how dishonest you think you're being, you do not have to tell people about your past or the fears or issues you face. Oftentimes they can use these against you. You do not want to have the person or people relating to you as that fearful, anxious person tomorrow or a year from now. By revealing all the details of what you think and how you feel in the name of being honest or creating a stronger relationship, that's a weak foundation and may create problems down the road. Consider counseling or support group instead. As you're progressing through the exercises and techniques that we talk about on this podcast, you may notice that you will, of course, continue to have negative thoughts. I teach about thoughts creating reality, and then people come to me and they say, Brian, I don't know what to do. I keep on having these negative thoughts. This is very normal. At this stage especially, negative feelings will still arise no matter what, and you may fear that you'll never get over your challenges or anxiety. Use these feelings as cues to what is going on inside you, not as disaster or impending doom. Realize that it is perfectly normal to trip or fall back into old behaviors. And if you do, it is not the end of the world. Don't retreat or throw up your hands and give up. It's not a big deal, nor is it a setback. It's just a normal part of transformation. Just be prepared for it, regroup, and continue forward. As I always teach, affirmations are an important tool to use when negative thoughts and feelings come up. In fact, it is important to know that you can use affirmations as well as thought switching for the rest of your life. Make sure you've listed your affirmations in a notebook and you keep practicing them. Remember, the best times are early morning or before bed. It is also best to say affirmations out loud. And as you progress, you may discover you have other beliefs or certain kinds of incapacities, weaknesses, or that you have certain thoughts that distress you. Keep a running list of them in your journal. Every time you become aware of a thought or a principle or belief, such as, I'll never do that again because such and such. Capture the thought in your journal. If you are not someone that likes to journal, you can use your notes in your phone. I use that all the time. Your journal or the notes you use is an important tool. Do not dismiss the idea of using a journal or some sort of recording device. It seems simple and therefore it's easy to forget about or disregard. Use the journal as a tool to literally see what you're thinking, to clarify what you thought happened and what you believe may happen. It is a source of objectivity. Try to use the journal whenever you begin thinking, what if? At the end of each week, go back to your journal and review your thoughts. You're going to be shocked at the things you wrote down. You won't remember writing this stuff down. That's what's always amazing when I do a journal. What you worried about a week ago will look and feel very different now. The things that were so important last week look small with the passage of time. A month later, you'll say to yourself, I was worried about that. You will also discover the breakdowns you encountered later become breakthroughs. It's also useful to keep a running list of what you changed and how you changed them. It's useful to write down the positive comments others have made about the changes they see in you. Listing these things in your journal provides a positive track record for you to review periodically to remind yourself of your progress, and I also use it in my imagination. I imagine writing down positive comments other people have said to me, and I can see myself writing down in the journal with my handwriting. We tend to remember the bad more than the good, so we need a journal to remind us when we were and where we are now. You can also use your journal to create a clear plan of action to handle situations that keep you locked in fear or for moving forward, to commit to your vision. Think of a situation where you're fearful or situations that you may had avoided up until now, such as driving a car, going up an elevator, making a presentation, or going on a date. There are several methods to develop a plan. One method is called a progressive encounter. This is approaching the situation in terms of a step-by-step plan. Break down the action plan into increments, smaller steps. Then take each step. Tackle the plan in small bites. The progressive encounter is where you encounter the situation slowly and gradually. Some people have been in a situation that had frightened them in the past, and all of a sudden, they're now amazed that they've gotten through it without any problem. In developing a plan, it is wise to have a fallback plan, a plan B. You can use a plan B to get out of situations if you feel you need to. For example, during holidays, you may become anxious around relatives. Have an escape plan. Make a plan to take a walk when things become tense. Stay in a hotel instead of staying in someone's home. Take your own car so you can drive around or leave at the right moment. Don't feel defeated if panic or anxiety comes up again. Have a plan B. It's a good way to plan about you having options. You still may fear situations. This may not be the time to experiment. Let your heart be your guide. If there is a situation you feel you can handle, set it up in such a way that you can achieve your objective successfully. Don't become your own worst critic, which I see all the time. There are other simple techniques that you can use to handle your fears and anxieties. You can take on tasks that you know you can do. You can set a goal and break the goal into smaller components, then do each task, focusing only on the task in front of you. The most important thing you can and should do is create a vision of what you want and how to be in the world. Remember the questions we've asked previously. What are you good at? What do you wish to do? What do you wish to be and become? Select the vision, break it down into increments, smaller goals, and then list the tasks to reach each goal. Take the first task, complete it, or go as far as you can go. Commit to your vision. Then take the next task. Do one task at a time, committing to your vision each time, committing to the outcome. By taking a step-by-step movement toward the vision, recognize that you are going to confront your life principles and your beliefs and resistance. This is normal. Realize that resistance from your internal thoughts, those fears and self-doubts, are expected and natural. The key is to face them by doing the next right thing, which is the task right in front of you. Now is the time to commit to the outcome no matter what, to commit to your vision and see it through, overcoming the resistance and the fears and the thoughts that are trying to stop you from achieving your goal. Now is the time to reinvent yourself, to transform yourself, and I see it. My vision is for you to see your vision realized. Now is the time to commit to that. You can find all episodes of The Reality Revolution at therealityrevolution.com, and welcome to The Reality Revolution.